Got a lot of things going on in the NBA, so we're excited to be back talking about it here on the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. To warm up, or I guess to give you an idea of what's going to happen this episode is obviously we're going to talk some mid-season thoughts. I was very surprised to hear that during the Warriors Spurs broadcast that we're essentially at the halfway point, and even when Kevin texted me that we're at the halfway point, I was like, "Damn, we're already here." So that's exciting. We're gonna do some mid-season talk, rookie of the year, coach of the year, defensive player of the year, stuff like that we'll talk about. But something that has been happening, because obviously the All-Star game is getting closer. We're getting the returns on the NBA All-Star voting. So as of right now, LeBron James and Kevin Durant lead the fan vote. Essentially, I don't think there's really a surprise there. Maybe Giannis, who is in third, not being in two, is somewhere someone's surprised about that. But I don't think it's the most surprising. In general, my first thought is, and this already happened, and so this was just like while we were prepping to talk about this, I saw it that on the 13th they marked 3 for 1 day, which like the fan vote counted for 3 times as much, which I get it. It's a fan thing. And I feel like we talk about it every single year, the fan vote, because there's always somebody, AKA Derrick Rose, that gets on the list. Whether or not they deserve it is a whole nother.
Klay Thompson, when he hasn't played the whole year.
Right. Like there's always a whole thing going on here, but it's again, it goes back to it's the fan vote. So if it's who the fans want to see, fine. I'm not going to hate on it. It is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and the captaincy race is really the one to watch, because the top 2 overall vote getters get the captaincy. LeBron's got 4.8 million right now. KD's at 4.5, and Giannis is at 4.4. And really, I mean, no one else is close. The next highest is Steph Curry at 3.9. So I guess Steph is in theory in play as well, but like it drops pretty quickly after that. You get to Luka and you get to Kyrie and Jason Tatum, but they're nowhere near gonna catch the captaincy, which I mean, I guess is really LeBron's gonna be a captain until he's out of the league, right? Like that's just how it is. Like he's the icon. He's earned that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're probably gonna say Steph, but
Steph has never been the captain, which is kind of interesting.
Well, because LeBron's always been there.
Yeah, and I mean, because we've seen KD and Giannis do it, so I think that's the thing is, I almost like the switching it up of the flavors almost every other year.
I wish they would do like if you had it last year, even if you're the leader, you can't do it next year. So like every year, it's at least at this point it would just flip between LeBron and Curry, but at least we'd have somebody different.
Well, so this year it'd be Steph and Luka. That would be the two this year, which I think the league would love. Obviously, Steph, a darling in the league, somebody who the defending champion. Has won the MVP of the All-Star game before, and then Luka, the up and coming star. I mean, we'll talk about the midseason awards in a little bit, but I mean, realistically, we're going to look at one of those or 2 of those guys being. I mean, it's probably going to be LeBron and KD. Who are we kidding? I mean, Giannis, like I said, is the only one who I think could get there. For the overall voting, I'm going to do top 5s. I'm not really going to go entirely down the list. But for the front court in the West right now, it's LeBron, Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, Zion, and Andrew Wiggins. And then in the guard front, it's Steph Curry, Luka, Ja Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Klay Thompson. In the Eastern Conference in the front court, you've got KD, you've got Giannis, you've got Jason Tatum, you've got Joel Embiid, and you've got Jimmy Butler. And then guard-wise, you've got Kyrie, Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Jaylen Brown, and Trae Young. I mean, is there anything as we're looking, and the full tweet's up from the NBA account or the NBA PR account if you want to just go look at the returns. And for anybody who's not familiar, it's 50% fan vote, 25% media vote, and 25% player vote is how they actually factor this in. I don't think there's anything super duper egregious right off the rip that stands out. I mean, if anything, I think the fan vote, it hurts guys who I think should maybe be higher on the list because how well they're playing. So like Lauri Markkanen, for example, is somebody that you and I talked off mic about a little bit and who we're going to talk about a little more later in this episode. But Lauri Markkanen is 7th in the front court vote right now. To me, he should be higher than Andrew Wiggins. He's played more of the year. Andrew Wiggins has been hurt for a large portion of the year. So it's like, that's a situation where, I don't think the fans always get it right. Obviously the bias is per just certain markets necessarily being bigger can help here as well. I don't think there's any super examples. I mean, Kevon Looney's ninth in front court. I guess if you wanted to find one that's there in the West, I mean, he's got more votes than Kawhi Leonard for some perspective.
So the two that I kind of thought of, and again, it's guys we're going to talk about. You kind of talked about it with Markkanen being lower. Sabonis should probably be on there.
Definitely, absolutely. Sabonis not being on this list is a travesty.
And Jalen Brunson, I think it's kind of wild that Knicks fans. It might show you the state of Knicks fans right now, in my opinion, that Jalen Brunson's not there with the season and how well he's playing, but like Derrick Rose is.
Yeah, but I think Derrick Rose, again, just has that legacy. He's got that fanhood. He's always had a loyal base of fans that are putting him over the top. I agree, obviously, from an X's and O's perspective, you're 100% right that he should be on that list over Derrick Rose should be. That is one of those just, I mean, on the other side of the coin in the West, like that's Austin Reeves, right? Austin Reeves has more All-Star votes than De'Aaron Fox, and not just by a pretty hefty amount. We're talking about 38,000. Like that's egregious if you think about it. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's the downside of the fan vote sometimes, right? Is that they get the stars right for the most part. But yeah, when you start to get to from 6 to 10, I think that's where guys who, maybe this is their 1 or 2 all-star years, but they're just put the body of work in. Maybe they've been, unexpected. Siakam was 6th in the East. That's good to see because I think he's a guy who consistently stays a little underrated and not on a lot of people's radars. Julius Randle getting on back on this list. I think he's really, you talk about Brunson too. I think Randle's really started to put it together these last few weeks here. And I think he's kind of looked a bit more like all-star Julius Randle as of late, which is obviously a massively welcome sign for Knicks fans. But yeah, he's a big reason for that kind of turnaround as well. So it's good to see him get some all-star consideration.
I'm wondering if I can get the stats pulled up quick enough. Probably not because they move things around on me, but I know Aaron Gordon's having a pretty decent year too. So like, I feel like maybe he should get some votes. Like what I wanted to do was compare him and Wiggins stat wise, but I don't.
Sabonis not being there is really egregious. Like that's a good catch by you. There's no planet where Sabonis should not be in the All-Star game this year.
Yeah. I mean, Sabonis is, in general, I was thinking about this. Am I bandwagon a little bit with the Kings?
Oh, now you can't bandwagon the Kings after. Wait a minute. I am not letting you get that off now. When they were, wait a minute. You sat here on this podcast and told me that the Kings were not breaking the drought and not making the playoffs
they
this year.
Are going to do it,
saying they were not. I was saying they could contend out of the play-in.
They're going to do it.
Of course they're going to do it. They're the 4th in the West right now. It's not even like it's damn near a lock short of them all. I don't want to get too crazy because I really don't want to jinx the Kings fans because they are having but they're 4th in the West as of recording this. Like the Beam Team vibes are real. It's high. It's not just like we're talking about them avoiding a play-in potentially at this point. I mean, that was, to me, the goal was to break the drought and get in. But if they can avoid the playoff entirely and guarantee themselves a full series in a home playoff game in Sacramento, it is going to go crazy. Can you imagine if they light the beam after a playoff win? It's been since 2002, Justin.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I want to jump on the bandwagon. You got to let me on.
They're the darlings of the NBA this year, without a doubt. 100%. Like I think they remind me of Cleveland last year. Cleveland was the darlings last year where they broke out, a lot of young guys. They loved playing with each other. You just could see the joy. And Memphis like that to an extent too, I think recently, maybe 2 years, a little more now because Memphis is just kind of like Memphis has been in the playoffs too much for me to still say they're a darling. You know what I mean? They're more of a staple at this point. But yeah, I think the Kings, without a doubt, are the feel-good story. I mean, it's the Kings. The only one that's close to me is Utah. Like Utah being 22 and 23 when we expected them to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. And that kind of goes back to Markkanen a little bit, right? Like Markkanen is one of the breakout players of the year. Like no one on earth, even after the great Eurobasket he had, like I don't think anyone thought Lauri Markkanen was going to come in and do this season.
I don't. And again, I don't want to get too ahead of it from what we're going to talk about when we talk about awards and stuff like that. But I completely agree. I think we saw a glimpse of this potential, obviously, the beginning of his career when everyone was really hyped on him. But that kind of quickly went away whether it was with the expectation or the team just not performing. There's a lot that goes into it, but I really do. I think he should be there. And I know we keep hitting the Sabonis thing, but like the Kings are being super slept on right now. So I think they should get their plug with Sabonis.
Oh, well, he's just one of the big reasons why, and that's why, like I said, with De'Aaron Fox as well. Like De'Aaron Fox being 10th down there is just feels really egregious to me. I mean, he's behind Russ. He's behind. I mean, Book has missed time as much as I love Book. Besides that, I mean, going east, I don't think there's anything else too much here where I'm like, oh man, that's a sin at this point. I feel like the top guys are all largely right. If anything, I would maybe put Donovan Mitchell over Kyrie. But that's pulling hairs, you know what I mean? They both had excellent seasons. I just at that point I'm going to games
obviously
played more than anything.
And again, when you take into account the fan vote, of course Kyrie's going to be over Donovan. It's just how it is. And the next fan vote update will happen on the 19th. So a few days after we drop this episode, it'll go up there.
That was really good, Justin. I read between the lines there. I got it. I see what you did there. Or maybe I'm instigating there, but
I don't know. We are what we are,
you, bro. Anyway, All-Star game come up soon. Like I said, you can still get out there, get the fan vote. Any early predictions on the Kobe Bryant All-Star game MVP trophy winner this year?
No.
You're not even gonna throw one out. You can't. Come on, you can't humor me a little bit.
I don't know, man. Like, who even? Actually,
Jokic. I feel like Jokic wants his respect.
I got another person we could put on there potentially. I feel like Westbrook should have more votes.
You think he should be higher?
He's up for Sixth Man of the Year.
Who do you knock down?
No.
Ahead of him.
The fact, like, I get it. But take into account LA, you know what I mean? Like the fan base, your population is so big and you can only get, 600,000 votes for Westbrook in a year that he's at least playing decent for your team, but you can get 2 million and 4 million for LeBron. Like, come on.
You see what LeBron's doing every night still?
I get it, but like you can give your boy some plug, like be a fan base. I get it. They got Austin on there too, but like, damn.
I'm not gonna let you get that off when De'Aaron Fox is that low. We are not gonna feel bad for Russell Westbrook. No.
I'm not saying that he should be there over anybody else, but when you take into account how big the Lakers fan base is, and Westbrook being, again, we're gonna talk about it, in the favorites for Sixth Man of the Year, he should probably have more votes.
All right. I think we may have lowered the bar. I get that it's a feel-good story because, like, Russ is not going to wash that. I'm happy, too, that Russ is not washing out of the league.
And he's already a big-name NBA star to begin with. Like,
he's been in a zillion All-Star games already.
I know.
He was an All-Star back then.
So has Kyrie, and that's why
Kyrie's playing at an All-Star level. Brooklyn looks like they might win the title.
Sure. But that's why Kyrie has more votes than Donovan. So in my mind, Westbrook should have more votes than
Donovan's got the Cavs at like 4th in the East. He scored 71 the other night. What are we talking about?
He did. I'm just saying Westbrook deserves more love than he's getting.
All right. National media, Justin. I didn't think I'd see this on this episode. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Light the MF beam, man.
You really are. You are not getting to be a beam teamer this hard. We gotta know where's Mark Jose. Tweet us, please, because I know he's been waiting for this for a long time. At least 10.
I hope he's still listening.
He tweets me once in a while still, so I really hope he's still listening too. Because like you're here, bud. You are reaping the fruits of your labor finally.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. What are my options? So I'm not going to guess Fox. We mentioned him other times. I feel like we've done Herter recently, so I won't do him. What about Rashawn Holmes?
No.
All right, who we got?
Malik Monk.
Okay. All right. Listen, another great pickup for them who's been hooping this year.
Who, by the way, big altercation on the court against the Blazers. I don't know if you saw that with Garrison Matthews the other night. Bunch of ejections. It was crazy. Shout out to the Kings fan base for an absolute troll job. They went on Wikipedia and they changed the info on Garrison Matthews' page. So the first line on his page says Garrison Matthews is also known as Malik Monk's son and best known for trying to kill Malik Monk while down 20.
Dude, I'm legitimately so happy because like Malik Monk, I was so high on him and the draft. Like I remember a few years ago, I mean, we saw him at Summer League in Orlando when he was playing for Charlotte. Like I really thought out of Kentucky that he was just going to be that guy. And I mean, it was, and credit to him. I mean, last year on the Lakers, like he was a 10-day guy. Like he was, you know, as bad as that season was for the Lakers last year, he truly was one of the few success stories there. And then obviously played himself into this bigger contract now. And, you know, continuing to see him succeed over there in Sacramento, he's been a good pickup for them. So, you know, really give him a lot of credit for plugging with it. Like it's a good fun story.
Yeah, it's great, and obviously when because the Kings are playing better, there's going to be more attention on him now, and so people will start giving him his credit where it's due, and that's just, you know, you love seeing that for the players that are obviously working really hard.
Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Stitcher. Look, if there's a place you can find a podcast, we're there at this point, and there's a lot of them now. I mean, I run through the big dogs every week that aren't, or at least not iTunes, but yeah, if they're anywhere we are there, you will find
I wonder. This probably doesn't even need to be on the podcast, but either way, here we are. I wonder the legality of podcast platforms putting us on there without our permission, because it definitely happens. I get emails all the time from platforms being like, "Hey, Justin, your podcast is now on Pod Spreaker or whatever." You know, like they they put out all these other ones, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Like I don't hate it, but I wonder, like, are they allowed to just do that?
I don't think, because they're not making money off us. You know what I mean?
What?
I guess they could in theory.
They could in theory,
it's one
right?
of those. It's a double-edged sword, because it's one of those things where it's like,
if
I don't really complain about being up on more platforms, because if more people discover us on said platforms, then obviously I'm excited about it. So I don't really.
But if it's a video, say it was like the video part that we do on YouTube, right? Say somebody is embedding that onto a page.
I would feel differently about the video. Yeah. Well, if you embed it and you link back to the actual page, then I don't care.
But on that page, maybe they pay for people pay them for digital advertising, and there's things all around. You know what I mean?
Did you embed the actual link and it linked directly to our page when they click the video and we get credit for the video play?
Yeah.
Then I probably don't care about it as much. I get it. Like, I do understand, because you're right. It's like to me, if you're making any money off us, then yes, I would like a cut of it. That's just the way the business works. But no, I mean, I don't think like that's a situation where if you're linking back to us directly and we get the credit for it, and then I don't think it's stealing. I want people like, we post this in a public platform because I want people to listen to this. Like, I'm not one of those super weirdos about that. Like, this is all free. You know what I mean? Like, we want people to listen to it. But yeah, I would, you know, I understand what you're saying. Like, it is one of those, like, it is an interesting gray area. If something were to really take off, you know, if this were to become, pardon my take, for example, like levels of just where they're clocking millions of downloads every week, then like, yeah, I don't know, at that point it hits a greater scale.
And I think the comeback from any account or a company or whatever's thing would be like, you don't want it, then unpublish the episode and it goes away, you know.
And I don't disagree with that entirely either. It's like, you publish this out there, you post your RSS feed for this to be accessible. Again, your brand potentially grows depending on what platform it is, where people are listening, you know. And that's why at the end of the day, we don't complain about it, right? Like, we've never thrown a fit about it ever. I hope we're on every podcasting platform ever out there.
Exactly. So there it is. You can also, by the way, we talked about it, you can find us on YouTube, one of the other platforms where there is a video version. You can see me supporting my Jacksonville Jaguars in a beanie, which, by the way, it is hot as you know what, in this room.
That's crazy, because it's about, like, I saw it's gonna be 40 at kickoff, which is gonna be hilarious to me, because I just can't wait to see all the good people at Jacksonville just bundled up like they're going to the
100%,
because it's 40 degrees.
This is, I mean,
y'all gonna get all these coats and hoodies and stuff off. Like, I'm up here freezing.
Hey, we had a freeze warning this morning. I woke up, it was in the 30s. It was cold. Like, objectively, it was cold. So
yesterday was weird, and I promise I'm not gonna delve into the weather too much, but it was wild yesterday because it was raining. So it was like 55 degrees in the morning. And then
Yeah.
like it was 2 in the afternoon and it dropped to like 38. And it's like, wait a minute, why is it getting colder right now? Like
Yeah,
the
that
sun's
happened.
out. What's going on?
That wave of cold got to us too. It was the same thing. It was 8 it was literally 80 degrees on Thursday when we went to a baby appointment. I was in shorts and a t-shirt. The next day I woke up, it was in the 60s, morning in the 60s. That's
I love
about
the
normal.
60s. 60s is peak.
I went to work in a t-shirt and jeans. And when I left, it was like 42. I was like, and windy. And I was like, oh, damn, it's cold as hell now. So either way, we are on YouTube. You can find us. We have, or looking for number 57. So feel free to give us a follow or a subscribe there. That way you can be notified when we publish the episodes or schedule them to be published. And you can hang out with us and watch the episodes and jump in, comment. We'll obviously get back to you when we check the account. Sometimes we forget, but either way, we will get back to you.
I wish 57 was a better number too. Like, 55 with Mutombo wasn't that long ago. 57's a little rough, but seriously, we will appreciate. Well, if anything, we might appreciate you a little more because you go for a number that isn't
Biting
necessarily
the
the
bullet.
most
Yeah.
sought after, I guess. And now a word from our sponsors.
So middle of the year, pretty much at the halfway point of the season. So it's time to do a little check-in on players and where we think awards might go. I don't think anybody is really debating too much the rookie of the year. So I feel like we can start with that one
Yeah, that's
and
the
just kind
easiest
of
by far. Yeah.
check it right off the list for
Yeah, it's
Orlando.
Paolo Banchero. Like, Paolo Banchero has been so much better. And I mean, Paolo's billing coming into this draft, right, was that he was the most NBA ready. But full disclosure, I had him going 3 on my big board. Like,
Yeah.
I would have had, you could have argued him to me at 1. I had Jabari Smith number 1 on my big board. But I understand why Orlando took Paolo in the draft. I think they were in a situation where I don't think they had the time of development per se that you would need for a Chet Holmgren type. And they just couldn't afford to miss it. They had a lot of good young supporting guys, but they need that one true superstar to kind of build this roster up and have it become everything that it's going to be. And that's just what they've got with Paolo Banchero. I mean, he's been absolutely phenomenal, averaging over 20 points for the season, 21.2 points, 6.8 boards, 3.8 assists. The numbers have only gotten better since he's had any level of NBA guard play, because that was just the struggle for the Magic early on, right? Is that all their guards were hurt. So it was even just tough to get in the ball in a lot of places. He's shooting 43% from the field. His effective field goal percentage is 47. If there's an area of improvement you would hope to see, it's his three-point shot. His three-point shot, he's only hitting about 31% right now. If you can up that clip a little bit, obviously that makes his ceiling that much higher. But no, Paolo Banchero has been everything that they hoped he would be. He's the centerpiece of that franchise, along with Franz Wagner and hopefully Jalen Suggs and the rest of the guys. And Jonathan Isaac, by the way. Welcome back, Jonathan Isaac, playing in Lakeland the other night. First time since the bubble. It's been almost 900 days. So definitely a lot of fun there. Shout out to our guy, Nick Renowitz, friend of the show, co-host often when one of us is out, getting the call on that game. So a lot of fun. Glad to see Isaac back in the lineup. But yeah, I mean, this is really like, I mean, and the Vegas odds reflect it, right? Like, you've got the Vegas odds, but I think it's at what, like minus 1,000 right now for Banchero to win. It's not even close.
Yeah, minus 1,000 for Banchero. Benedict Mathurin on Pacers is plus 700 at next, which I pulled up his stats. He's having a
great.
good year.
He's the only one, and I agree. Like, he's in the ballpark. Like, I thought it was going to be Keegan Murray, and Keegan Murray.
Here's but even from the odds, he's not in the ballpark. Like, it's minus 1,000 to plus 700. Like,
you're right, but he's at least
next,
like,
but he's not in the ballpark.
He's a firm 2 right now. Like, I firmly believe he's number 2 on this list.
In case you're wondering, for number 3, it's Keegan Murray from the Kings. So that's who's plus 10,000 actually. So
that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, the other guys, you talk about Jalen Williams and OKC. You talk about Jaden Ivey.
Ivy was on the list too.
But I mean, yeah, this is a slam dunk for Banchero. Mathurin's been really good. He's been like, I mean, Indy's been another surprise of the year, and we're going to talk Indy a little bit later with the Hallie injury at the end of the episode. But yeah, he's absolutely worthy of consideration there, and I think he's had the second best. Like, I would put him solidly above like the Ivies and the Keegan Murrays and everybody else. Obviously, we'll the unfortunate bummer is that we'll never know where Chet Holmgren would have been on this list. I think Jabari Smith is starting to round into form for Houston too. Like maybe he kind of makes a late push here, but yeah, I mean, like knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it, but like I think Paulo Banchero could get hurt right now and still win the award. That's how dominant I think he's been. I mean, the numbers are LeBron-esque. You don't want to ever put somebody in that, comparison because it's clearly impossible shoes to fill essentially, but he's putting up those rookie LeBron numbers. Like this is a pretty runaway home run award for me right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, where do you want to take it from there? I have defensive player just on my list, but we can go somewhere else.
No, we can we'll go by your list. I'm down with it. I mean, I've got defensive player of the year. I've got 6-man. I've got MVP. I've got coach, and I've got most improved. So
okay. So yeah, let's do defensive player. Jaren Jackson Jr. from the odds is most favorite right now at minus 135. Brook Lopez is number 2 at plus 500. Nick Claxton, who I believe is second in the league, if not first in the league now, for blocks, is plus 600. And I like the story of Nick Claxton and the way the Nets are kind of turning it around. So I think he gets a lot of love on that. Obviously, Brook Lopez being the old guy in the league, continuously, bringing the defense. So where do you see it going? Do you think it goes to Jaren Jackson Jr. with Memphis?
I think it's going to be Jaren Jackson eventually, and I do think it should be. His defensive numbers are just so outrageous when he's been on the floor. I mean, he's been historically great in terms of his block rate. I mean, he is the centerpiece of that Memphis defense. The knock against Jaren Jackson is just that he hasn't played the whole year, right? Like, and that probably is and that's where I want to give Brook Lopez his credit. Like Brook Lopez, I mean, leading the league in blocks right now, he's just like 0.1 behind Nick Claxton for blocks per game. I mean, this has been the best defensive season of his career. I mean, you talk about him being well into his 30s now, and the fact that he's been able to just reinvent himself this way and really be a stud defensive player and stepped up as the Bucks have dealt with a lot of injuries. I mean, Giannis is missing time now and hasn't looked quite right the last few games. Obviously, Chris Middleton's missed a ton of time here. When he's played the whole year, it's tough because you want to give him that credit, right? Like you feel like he should be right up there. But I think Jaren Jackson is so damn impressive when he's on the floor, man. I mean, the non-center guy that you always got to look at is OG Anunoby, right? Like he's leading the league in steals and steals per game. He guards he could guard 1 through 5. Obviously, I don't really want him guarding centers like that, but he's somebody that I think is in the list. Nick Claxton definitely should get a lot of credit. I mean, talk about Jacque Vaughn and them turning it around. He's been a huge reason why defensively, every single night, like he's just been a beacon down there and has really just done his job and done it to a great way. I was a little surprised to see, not Bam maybe as much, but I was a little surprised to see Giannis over OG Anunoby and maybe even Evan Mobley as well. Like Evan Mobley's leading the league in defensive win shares right now. As great as Giannis has been all year long, I don't really know that it's the defense that has necessarily been the standout for me this year, but it's tough. If the season ended today, I would probably vote for Brook Lopez, but if I'm being honest about where I think it's going to end at the end of the year, then I think Jaren Jackson is going to win the award. And I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I've been kind of talking myself in, as you were talking a little bit, into the Brook Lopez saga of getting the Defensive Player of the Year award. I mean, it's such a turnaround, from being injured last year to coming in this year. Like, it really would be cool to see him get it. And again, from the blocks per game, around 2.5 a game, like he's definitely being felt down there. So
he was a net negative defensively pretty much his entire career in Brooklyn. And like, that's why, like, he had such a great career with the Nets. Like but even with the Lakers and those first couple of years with the Bucks, like he was never really, it's 2018 is really when he's kind of reinvented himself and he started. I mean, it's crazy. His 3-point percentage went way up and his defensive just rating went way up. I mean, he's at a 1.5 right now for defensive box plus minus, a 3.9 for defensive win share. So I mean, he's been phenomenal on that end.
Mhm.
There's no doubt about it. But I mean, Jaren Jackson's just also block rate is stupid as well. And still playing on limited minutes in a lot of these nights as well, coming off
Yeah.
the injury. So definitely, but not quite the rookie of the year race to say the least. I think it'll be one of those two. I don't really see anybody jumping in and swooping late. Although I do think OG, like I said, is a little lower than I would have him personally on the betting perspective. I think he should be a little. I think he should be above Giannis at least. Like if you don't want to put him above Bam, fine. I personally would put him above Bam, but I wouldn't have him above those other two.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I don't know. It's just I kind of feel like I always have trouble after you look at the first 2 guys on any list, right, for any award that they're up for, and I know, like, maybe MVP is in one of those situations where it's a little bit different, but, like, after the first 2, it's like, I feel like we're just we're just moving straws around where at the end of the day, it's
I
like,
think for some, I don't think we are with a lot of these though. I mean, I think for MVP, for MIP, for sixth man, I think these are a lot more, and coach especially too. Like I've got
coach is a fun
5 or
one.
6 that I can
But I
really
think with
argue with.
like, I think with, like, most improved and coach specifically, there's always, like, the story behind it more than specific numbers, where like defensive player, we can go look at the on off stats, we can go look at
Yeah.
the box plus minus, stuff like that. And rookie of the year obviously is a big stats one and how many minutes they're playing and stuff like that. Where like most improved, it's like, man, last year was, almost career ending injuries, come back, putting up 20 or whatever, like those are the stories that I like to create. And I feel like you can't do that with some of the guys once you get past like the first 2 or 3 players that are on really any of the list and the odds list for winning it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Because like look, with rookie of the year I couldn't. Like
Right.
there's no way around it.
There's
But
just no it.
which award do you got next?
So I got six man. As of right now, they got Westbrook number one at minus 120. Jordan Poole number two at plus 400, and Malcolm Brogdon at plus 550. So relatively close, at least in second and third. It seems like right now favorite is Westbrook, which again, if you're trying to create a story, and we alluded to this at the beginning of the episode a little bit, you have that fun like from literally like, oh my god, we got to get him off the Lakers, which they're still talking about, but like, oh my God, we got to get him off the Lakers. He's unplayable last year to potential six man.
Well, yeah, it's the fact that he's found a role and that he's comfortable, right? Like he's
Yeah.
averaging 15 a game, he's averaging 6 rebounds and almost 8 assists. Like those are objectively good numbers off the bench. It seems like he's just taken to the role, which is what you would hope that Russell Westbrook would do. I mean, A, to make the team better, but B, just to kind of in a way salvage
Hmm.
this later end of his career, right? Like you would wonder if he'd have that almost coming to Jesus moment and would accept coming off the bench. Look, I still don't think it's what he wants to do, obviously,
Right.
but I think he's done it enough this year to, yeah, he's become a little bit of a net positive here for the Lakers. I mean, they only have 1 year left on this deal. Like, I think they should absolutely still be trying to trade him, number one. And number two, I don't think they should really be trying to resign him once this deal is done. But like, yeah, I think there's a way where there's a path for him to win this award, and there's a path for it to be. It's just like it reminds me of when Carmelo Anthony finally caught on with Portland, of where it's like, okay, like we can have just a more graceful NBA end to your career. We're
Hmm.
not just getting bumped off random teams and just kind of ending with an abrupt kind of a blip. Um, that's not really. I mean, injuries did it with Kemba Walker, but I mean, Kemba Walker is an unfortunate example of that, right? Like, got cut by Dallas a couple weeks ago, and that's realistically probably it. Like, it felt like Dallas was his last shot, and he didn't even play poorly, but just with the injuries, it feels like that has fully sapped him. You hope here with Russ that again, it's we want to see our greats age gracefully. In terms of the award itself, I mean, I think it's tough for sure. Like Brogdon has been really good off the bench, and when Brogdon's good, he's really good for Boston. And so
It's
I think
fun,
that's
man.
one thing
Yeah.
that can snake or stand out to them. Um, Jordan Poole, I mean, if anything, his argument that is going to ruin him is just because I feel like he's had to start more because of all the injuries, right? It's like, is
Clay
he
was or Clay. Steph was out with that injury. He just came back.
Yeah, so it's like I know that he traditionally is
But
their sixth man, but he's also been. I feel like he's a almost a super sixth man at this point. And when
Right.
he's going, like, they'll have the combos with him and Clay and him and Steph, and so they just kind of almost rotate through the three of
I feel like
those.
I feel like one could argue that's the biggest role of a six man is being able to replace guys, obviously for minutes, but even when they're injured, that's a big part of a six man's role is to be able to fill those gaps. So I feel like that's at least like the counter argument to it a little bit, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, he should be in that conversation. Like, I don't want to take that away at all. Um, I don't know. I'm not really bullish on any of these yet. Like, I still think Brogdon can. I guess I'd vote for Russ if it came down to it. But like, I think Brogdon is really good off the bench for Boston too. Like, that's my kind of sleeper one. When he
Mhm.
goes, like, and he's had a couple bad games, but when he goes, I mean, he's a starter essentially.
Yeah, and that's kind of the fun of it. I think it feels like while I was hyping up Westbrook, it feels wrong giving it to Westbrook or voting for Westbrook just because of how negative the team's vibes are and were around him. So like there's that, but I agree. I think it'll go to Westbrook, but it is what it is. And I think the other it doesn't take away from what the other guys are doing. Jordan Poole, I think could also maybe not get six man because we kind of already saw him play so well last year. Like we expect this from him a little bit. I know it's not most improved, but like we kind of know what we're getting from Jordan Poole at this point. So it's not like
Yeah,
it,
there's a
it
difference
is
between six man and most improved. Like, I don't think because we knew what we were getting from Lou Will every year.
no, but it's not like it's not voter fatigue, but it's like, it kind of becomes expected of you, like when at the beginning of the year when Jordan Poole wasn't hitting those numbers, we were kind of like, oh man, dude, that they, you gotta get right. They just paid you. You gotta get right. And he's playing better now, but I think that's a big part of it too.
All right, well, let's go to MIP because I want to talk about MIP more a lot. Because this is really because we talked about this a little bit before we recorded this episode, but to me, this is one of the most contentious ones. Because Gilgeous Alexander is the favorite right now, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's at hold on, I can play. He's at minus 125.
Okay. And then so I know in the mix, you've got Laurie Markkinen, you've got Tyrese Halliburton, you've got Jalen Brunson, and you've got Anthony Simons.
From the odds, Laurie Markkinen is number 2 at plus 120, and Halliburton's number 3 at plus 1,000. So really, right now, at least from the odds, people believe the race is between Markkinen and Alexander. So
It's
I kind of agree with that, but we talked about this. I kind of like Markkinen's story more.
I know, but I don't want to completely just give way to the storyline. Like, I agree that I like it more too, but I mean, Gilgeous Alexander, if anything, my point is that he's been quite good for a while.
Yeah,
Like, I know that he's morphed into this, like, I mean, he's pretty high this year. I want to say, I mean, he's probably had what, a top 15 season. I mean, he's averaging 30 points a game right now.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I
I
know.
mean, he's at 35 and 5 basically, up from 25, 6 and 5 last year with OKC. Halliburton, because I want to because to me it's Gilgeous Alexander, Halliburton, and Markkinen in some order.
Mhm.
Hallie's averaging 20 points a game, 10.2 assists per game, and I think he's at 4 rebounds. His assist numbers are a career high. That's obviously been the big leap, but his scoring's up about 3 points a game as well. Markkinen went from 14.8 last year with Cleveland, and mind you, he was starting a lot of these games. Like, he started 61 games for Cleveland last year. 5 rebounds a game, almost 6, and like 1.3 assists. He's up to 8.6, 1.9, and he's averaging almost 25 a game. He's at 24.6. I like Hallie to me is third on this list. I know Hallie is the number one guy in Indy and that he's finally in his role and he's thriving in it. Like that was the thing when he got traded is it when in Sacramento, he always showed the signs. He was just in a tough backcourt because everyone was fighting for minutes where now he's unquestionably the guy in Indiana and he should be on this list. Like I think Halliburton's had an all-star year caliber year. We'll get into him now with the injury here in a little bit. To me, it just comes down to the argument of is it Gilgeous Alexander going from a certified like franchise player up into that potential like elite NBA pyramid guy, Or do you go from Lauri Markkanen going from, solid role starter guy to, no, this is an actual bona fide all-star level? I don't know. To me, like, I'm inclined to go Markkanen, right? Like, Markkanen has
That's
radically
fine.
improved, and that's the difference. Like, he jumped 10 points a game this year, and it's not like his role has changed. I mean, I know that he's inflated a bit in Utah, but Utah's winning games. It's not like he's just putting up numbers
He's
on a bad team. Like, they're in playoff position, which is where no one expected them to be.
and he's only added 4 minutes a game, compared to last year, which is a big part of it. Now, when you're saying that though, from the OKC side of things, like we did really go from a guy who we thought was going to be really good to a guy we know is going to be really good and an all-star. So like there is a little bit of that cuz wasn't there a year did Steph win it the year that he won MVP? Was he also most improved? Cuz like we're like how do you improve on most improved or how are you like we expect it and like we kind of have like a mini version of that
Well,
with OKC.
and Gilgeous Alexander has been the breakout star this year, right? Like, I
Yes.
think he's a guy that NBA fans have known is quite good for a while. Like,
Right.
there were rumors last year that, I mean, and smart people, like, online and who work for major publications whose opinions that I respect were arguing that, maybe given OKC's timeline and where it's at right now with Holmgren being out for a year, that maybe Gilgeous Alexander is just a little bit too old. That was always kind of wild to me because he's 24 years old. It's like, wait a
Right.
minute, he's not even in his prime yet. Like,
He's
what are we
he's
talking about?
literally he's younger than the quarterback that just won the college playoffs
Right. Like, I'm at,
championship.
and
Yeah.
congrats to Georgia again, by the way, back to back. Absolute bloodbath. I fell asleep. That game was 10-7. I woke up, it was 52-7.
Yeah.
Um,
It was
can't
rough.
say that happens too often, but yeah, I mean, it's reached a point where, yeah, he's untradeable now. Like, he's clearly, it's not just like, oh, he's the, like, one of the guys in OKC. He's the guy at this point. Like, I know Chet Holmgren is there, but, and I mean, they're winning games too. Like, that's the thing, standings wise, is they're at 20 wins. Like, you talk about Markkanen with 22 wins in Utah. Like, OKC is only a game back of them standings wise. Like, if they're able to get into the playoffs, I think that's a massive success, and I think he should get a
Mhm.
lot of credit for that, being the clear number one guy on that team. I mean, they're 6-4 in their last 10 as of recording this. Um, I mean, the fact that they're a game behind a Phoenix, a game behind a Minnesota, who is a team that clearly went all in this year. Um, there should be a lot of credit there, and so that this is tough. Like, a part of me wants to vote for Laurie again, just because I think it's such a radical jump, but I don't really like. We're splitting hairs in a big way here. Like, I think Gilgeous
Yeah.
Alexander is one of, if not the breakout star of the season this year. So I'm not really going to complain if someone wants to call him most improved player when he looks like, again, he's played like a top 15 player this year.
I think you can't go wrong with either of them, right? Obviously, that's why they're both here.
Yeah.
But regardless of who you go with, it's going to be a slight at the other one. And so, it's
I
more
hope
how
they
you
both make the All-Star game. I guess that's my
yeah.
greater point, is because I think they both put up All-Star caliber levels, and I don't think that they'll get they're not going to be fan vote darlings, put it that way. So that I hope they rightfully get their credit and get some recognition this year.
I completely agree. So, now you wanna do MVP or a coach?
Let's do MVP. I feel like let's get all the player awards out first.
So, MVP, as of right now, I believe the favorite is probably Jokic, maybe? I don't have them up right now, I'm trying to load the page, but I would bet it's Jokic or Luka probably betting favorites,
Yeah, Jason
if I had
Tatum,
to
I
bet.
think, is right there too. I think Boston, again, they started so hot, and I think Tatum was right at the top of a lot of people's lists, and should be still, honestly. Um,
So, uh okay, this isn't what I was looking for. Alright, hold on, I'll find them. Give me a
all
sec.
right, well, I will filibuster while you were looking for these things. So, because I largely agree. I mean, I think it's Jokic and Luca and Jason Tatum. I think to a lesser extent, like Embiid should get consideration. I think Giannis should get consideration. I think Donovan Mitchell should get consideration. I think John Morant's got a strong case as well.
Okay,
Um,
I got
the,
them.
all right, so let me hear your odds then, real quick. But those are kind of my guys that stand out right now.
According to DraftKings, the odds right now for Jokic are plus 260, Luka plus 270, so very close. Giannis and Tatum are tied at plus 500. Embiid would be next at 1,600. Durant after that at 2,000. John Morant 3,000. Donovan Mitchell 4,000.
Yeah.
Curry 5,500. So like
Donovan Mitchell should be higher. That feels kind of ridiculous, but I mean, I get it. I think it's crazy with Jokic because I really do think he has a chance of winning it. And I wondered with voter fatigue, just because he's won back to back now, like winning 3 MVPs in a row is really unprecedented. Like we're talking, I mean, winning 2 in a row is already insane. Him getting 3 in a row would really be something. But here's the thing. I don't really have a good argument not to. Like
right.
his offensive stats are absolutely ridiculous. He's playing well defensively. His team is great. They're 23 and 19. I mean, record-wise, they're only behind Boston right now. The argument for Luka is that he's clearly doing it with a more inferior roster. I mean, Denver's roster is really good with Porter playing, with Jamal Murray finally back. But to that point, Jokic has been doing this for years, and now that he's got a supporting cast, look at them being exactly who we thought they could be.
Yeah.
Dallas definitely has less, and Luka's doing it at just such a historic rate. So that I think that's right there too.
But
And again,
even
with the voter fatigue, I think that factors in. Tatum needs to get more credit. Like I think Tatum should be the solid 3 though right now, and if not closer to 1. Like Boston's won 31 games. He's playing the best basketball of his career. I don't know.
but
I think he's not getting enough credit there.
is it because when you look at Jokic, you look at Embiid, you look at Giannis, you look at Kevin Durant, I said Luka? I think I said Luka.
Yeah.
You look at all the guys on this list, and I know this, I guess it's a knock, and you'd probably point out Joel Embiid, the first player I say this afterwards. They have a pretty big name. Like Tatum has a big name star next to him who's playing also really well.
He does.
And I know Embiid has Harden, but you look at Luka, and it really feels like Luka's on an island by himself. And I know you said Denver's really good, but at the end of the day, we know Jokic is number 1, and there's not a close number 2, at least on that level of stardom.
Denver is like Milwaukee, but even to a greater extent, I guess, because I think Chris is better than anybody necessarily on Denver.
Right.
Maybe.
And I would say Giannis would be in that same thing where I think people would probably still say
that Jokic is the clear 1, but like his depth is low. Like Jokic's 2 through 7 is loaded. And that's what I think people like. Aaron Gordon, when he has to be the 4th or 5th best player, suddenly makes a lot more sense. Like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is still shooting the lights out. Like reasons for that are why I'm so high on Denver and why, but I think Jokic is the clear 1 there. I think, Luka, the argument is that yes, he's clearly the best player. And I mean, his 2, I guess, is Christian Wood, but it's like, you would probably argue that team got worse with the subtraction of Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
And they're still hanging around in 5th with him clearly being the target of everybody. He's got a 60-point triple-double this year. Like everyone knows it's coming now with Luka, and it's just still has been unstoppable.
And on top of that, but so like to that, that's why, that's kind of why I feel like maybe Tatum doesn't get the love he deserves. The Celtics feel more like a team effort team, whereas Nuggets.
That's disappointing though, because I think that's not giving Tatum enough credit for being the best player on the best team. Like I understand that he has Jaylen Brown, and that matters. Like Jaylen Brown and him are probably the best duo in the league at this point. Or I mean, at minimum top 3. So I do think that takes away a little bit, but like I think Tatum is the guy on the best team, so I think that should factor in a little bit as well. I don't know. I'm pretty firm on those as my top 3. Like we said, then you start getting into more toss-ups with like, you get to Donovan Mitchell, you get to Ja, you get to Embiid, you get to Giannis. Like I think at that point you can start to argue them, but they don't have quite the boost that those top 3 guys have.
Right. I agree. I would say those are my top 3 too, but I just think Luka. I think Jokic just has it by a good bit.
I'm quietly, oh God, I'm so high on Denver, no pun intended, but like I like I'm quietly getting around to like Jokic might be the best player in the league. Like I'm not there yet, but I'm kind of getting there.
He's almost at a triple-double. I mean, he's point 0.3 assists away for the season to be at a triple-double again.
Like, Embiid is my favorite player ever. I have no delusions about Jokic being better than Embiid at this point, as much as
Mhm.
that kills me to say. To me, like my top 3 going into the season was Giannis and Steph and KD. I might be a Jokic at 3. Like, I think I'm there. Like, he's still gonna get the time. Like, Steph is so hard to knock down after what I saw him, and I see a lot of top 10 lists doing this now with Jimmy Butler, where I'm just like, I can't take Jimmy Butler out of the top 10 when I would take him in a game over like 10
Most. Yeah.
yeah, if I'm picking a game to win, I'm still taking Jimmy Butler. Like that's kind of my thing with LeBron is it's like, do I want to knock LeBron out of the top 10 yet? Like if I need a game for my life, I'm still picking LeBron in the top 10. Like I think for one game, he's still that guy. And that's kind of where I'm at with Jimmy. Like I think if you're going on a full season, then it's different for sure. But I think if you're asking me in the playoffs, if I'm taking 10 players, I'm Jimmy Butler is one of the 10.
I I agree. He's definitely closer to being knocked off than not being knocked off, I guess is where I would say.
It's going to be the voter fatigue though with Jokic. Like that's going to be the
Yeah,
question to me, and I think it could go Luka that way. Especially it depends where they end too. Like if Dallas is top 3, I may go Luka even over Jokic myself, just because I think again, if you're that close in the West and you have a team where he's so clearly the one, like I think Denver is a significantly better team than Dallas. Like they should get credit. Like if we're gonna knock points away from Tatum because Boston is a really good team, we should for Denver this year too. Like Denver's excuse always in the past is that they didn't have their guys. They have their guys this year.
mhm,
Like that's already showing. So,
yeah,
but yeah, that's. I mean, like we said, it's another toss up. Like that's another. It's really difficult to tell who's going to win that award right now.
I agree. I agree. So last one is the Koi, the coach of the year. And, where do you stand? Because
Wait a
I
minute.
think
Has no one ever called the coach of the year? Like, can they have a club and call it the Koi Pond?
it
Like, can
should
they
be.
go out on a
Oh, that'd
sailing
be
trip the
fun.
one day? Like, I feel like that'd be a move somewhere.
I would love that actually. Like the they should do that. Um, top 3 for coach of the year. I guess let me before I tell you the odds, who are you leaning towards?
I go back and forth.
Okay,
I have. I don't know if it's so in the West. I'm leaning Taylor Jenkins, but I think Willie Green is right there. In the East, I'm torn between Joe Mazzulla and Jacques Vaughn.
sure.
I think Mike Malone should be there. I think Mike Brown should be there.
I almost wanna
Um,
give it to, because Taylor Jenkins didn't win it last year, right? That was the thing, he was in the running but didn't get it.
Taylor
So
Jenkins
part of
didn't win it, and
yeah,
Memphis is running it back this year. I think they're, I'm not going to mention them and who's balling, who's fallen here in a sec, but they've won 8 in a row as of recording this. Like they were almost my balling, so I guess honorable mention there. They're right there with Denver right now, a half game behind them, but they've got the game in hand. Um, I mean, Willie Green, again, having the Pelicans there, he had them ready last year. They picked up Zion, and now they're up to 3rd in the West. Like he's still keeping it up. Um, uh, I guess and maybe I'm biased just being on the East, and then I guess I've seen more of these games, but I keep going back and forth between Missoula and Jacques Vaughn. The argument for Jacques Vaughn is that he came in right off Steve Nash and has
right.
completely cleaned that team's defense up. He's got them all the way up to 2 in the East. Like they look like a bona fide contender the way that everyone has projected them to be the last few years. And that's just been off making a coaching change, essentially. He's really been that steady voice that they so desperately have needed. Like I think he should get a lot of credit there. Um, to that same token, I know they made the finals last year, so I guess that's the knock is it's like, hey, this team just did it. Like, what were you anything other than a plug and play guy? But like, that's a really difficult situation that Joe Mazzulla had to jump into.
And he
His
handled it.
first, his first head coaching gig is a team that has championship expectations. He's got them at the halfway point as the best team in the league. Like they picked right back up. And that's a situation too, where like that all played out with a week or two before the season, basically.
Yeah.
Like Ime Udoka was beloved by everyone in that Boston locker room last year. And obviously, like he is having to pay his penalty essentially. There's no doubt about that. Like that's just it is what it is. That's the consequences of his actions. But it's like that's not an easy job for Joe Mazzulla to just jump into right away. And he's been ready for the moment, and he's stood up and faced it head on, and has those guys looking like they're ready to make another finals run potentially here. So, I would have him right there at the top as well. Like I guess I'm picking Missoula if I have to pick one. But it's really tough. Like Jacques Vaughn should absolutely get a lot of credit as well.
Yeah, it's weird. They both kind of have the same story-ish line. Obviously, one just happened in the middle of the season, one happened right before the season, and both hit the ground running and are doing great. And for the Brooklyn side of things, turning things around. So I think that's the part that edges it out for me for Vaughn is Missoula and Vaughn have the same story, except the Celtics are the same, right? And that's good, really good. They're the same, and I get it. You had to still make it work. Where the Nets, they had some problems, and Vaughn's come in and fixed those, it seems like. So to me, that edges him out a little bit more. Again, all that being said, I just want to give it to Jenkins because I think he deserved it last year, so I want to give it to him for this year.
Well, and I don't even like that's the thing is it's like as much as we talk about the stories, like sometimes you just don't need a story. You can just be a great coach. And I think that's what Taylor Jenkins has been. Like he's been that here in Memphis the last couple of years. They consistently get better. Like it looks like they're ready to go on a run of their own. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, it's tough with him and Mike Malone because I think they're both doing a great job, right? Is that they both have their squads like at the top, ready to go. They're well coached every night.
Right.
And again, don't sleep on Mike Brown either. You want to talk about adding legitimacy. We said that for Jacques Vaughn. Talk about Mike Brown. Mike Brown came in, has really changed the culture. We talk about the vibes that starts at the top. And I think Mike Brown's done a great job at really settling things down. He's a guy that has been in the league for a long time. Coach LeBron in Cleveland, was an assistant on the Lakers, was an assistant on the Warriors. You really got it, hats off to him and being able to steady that ship and having those guys ready to play every night. I don't know. I mean, if the Kings are fourth in the Western Conference, like you got to put him over Jenkins and Malone, right? Like,
but
Justin, we were projecting them to finish 11th, maybe.
Right. But my counter would be is that kind of situation where they exceed expectations. They're the darling of the league. That was the Grizzlies last year, and Jenkins didn't get it.
Yeah, they've been for 2 years. The Grizzlies have
I know, but last year was like the year that they really started like, oh, they're legit. Oh, they're real legit, and it just that wasn't enough to get them there, and they were, I forget where they ended up, but essentially the similar idea, like third, in the league going into the playoffs. So like, I get it. I think the Kings should get their credit as well, but I don't know if it's going to happen in the way of Coach of Year.
No, I mean, and this is really like, I mean, if we're really getting into the hardest one to pick, I think for me it is this one. Like this is really all these, like those 5 guys to me are basically equal, more or less.
Really?
Like I don't really have, like I think they're all great coaches. I think they all have their teams ready to play. I think that they've all have real chances of winning titles this year. Outside of maybe Sacramento, but I think when the turnaround is that drastic that you should get credit for it.
I agree. I think at the end of the day, the coach of the year, the most improved, 6th man, defensive player of the year should go to the Beam.
Just everything? Or just give it to the Beam itself. Just give it to the Beam.
Ever since the Beam's been implemented, it's been a huge turnaround for the Kings.
No, I mean, look, like we said, the vibes are high there. Another guy we didn't mention we're going to pivot. And Justin, I'm talking to you on the fly here because we're at an hour as we speak right now, and we're going to do who's balling, who's fallen. Originally, our second segment was going to be to just mention KD because we haven't mentioned him being out for 2 weeks, which thankfully is only 2 weeks with the knee injury.
There's some concern. Yeah, there was a
Yeah, it
worry it
looked
was
a
worse.
lot worse when it went down, but we do want to mention that. Another guy that we didn't mention in Coach of the Year consideration that could be there as well is Rick Carlisle, honestly. Like, I think the way that Indy has been, I mean, we thought Indy was going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. They're 23-20 as we're recording this. They're in play-in position. Hallie's been one of the breakout stars of this year. He unfortunately is going to miss about 2 weeks here too, so I did want to mention that. For Indy, it's again just staying afloat. It's not really a 2 week injury. They're going to be okay.
Would just because I'm thinking about it, you talk about teams doing really well. They're in fourth right now. Like, do you think JB Bickerstaff should be considered a little bit for the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, sure, absolutely. I don't have him quite as high.
Not with the
as
other
some of
guys, yeah.
I think last year he would have had a better argument just because they came out of nowhere essentially,
Sure,
and I do
sure.
think unfortunately that's going to penalize him a little bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he's doing a great job there. And
I
to
mean,
Indy's point,
he's got him tied with the Bucks and the Nets record-wise,
yeah, the
essentially.
Cavs are doing great. Like
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell's been everything that they've needed him to be,
Mhm, mhm.
which is great. I mean, it was a great trade for them. Indy, yeah, I mean, they're 2.5 up on Atlanta and 3.5 up on Toronto right now. So they have some leeway. They're a game behind the Knicks. And so it's again just kind of survive. Their net rating is almost at even exactly right now, or their differential, I should say. So that's kind of
Okay.
funny. They're at minus 0.1 right now. So just gotta get that opponent's point per game up a tick and see if they
Yeah.
can hit dead even. Gotta be kind of funny.
Deflect
I'd be
one
crazy.
shot.
Yeah, it'd be crazy to be at dead even at the midway point of the season. But yeah, we did want to mention those. But so we will end the show this week because we've gone a little long today with who's balling, who's fallen. And on that note, is a little bit longer. I think we're cheating this week, but we do want to head over to our NBA version of the stock market. We always start with the good before the bad. So how many do you have this week? You have 3, you said?
Yes, but I forget what my third one was now.
All right, well, let's start with your first one because I have one ball and I already, again,
What
tip
was
my
my
hat to
third?
Memphis. I wanted to mention Memphis. They've won 8 straight, so they would have been 1. But all right, let's start with you, Justin. What do we got first?
My first ballin is the Spurs officially set the attendance record,
Yep.
68,323. The Spurs played at the Alamo Dome as a part of their 50th anniversary celebration. I could have a falling out of this, but we'll get to that at the end. We'll give them their due. David Robinson announced the official attendance at the end of the third quarter. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It looked packed. Now here's the thing. I saw some pictures from fans that were like up in the nosebleeds.
Yeah.
You weren't watching that game. You can't see that game. Like,
and so that's my thing with like one of my favorite events, not to totally switch sports, but like one of my favorite events in sports is the Winter Classic, right? When they play the hockey game outside.
Same thought. Yeah.
And they play it in the baseball stadium and it's super cool and the backdrop is incredible and it's just amazing. You can't see anybody if you're sitting up in the bleeds like that.
You can't see that puck. Come on.
And so that's kind of my thing with live sports sometimes is it's like, I don't want to sound bougie, but like, now, it's different with basketball because if you're in a regular NBA arena, even in the bleeds, if you're in the middle, you still have a pretty decent like view of everything.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, with baseball, with football, when you're in these massive, 60,000 plus outdoor arenas where this happens all the time, then yeah, I think it's a little bit different. But no, regardless, super cool. They broke the record. It was previously set back in 1998 in Atlanta. It was a Bulls Hawks game, so a lot of MJ, Scottie Pippen, Bulls love there too. But yeah, definitely breaking that record. Super cool on their 50th anniversary,
which is wild. Which is wild because just because it's top of mind, the Jags Titans game had. I don't think it was sold out crowd, but it's got to be damn close. They had 70,000 something. They were not much more than that. So that's kind of crazy when you put it in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, those football crowds are big, and I mean that's not even getting to like huge European soccer stadiums or the college ones. Go to the big house of the University of Michigan fits like 110,000 people. Penn State's stadium is something crazy like that too.
Mm-hmm.
You got populations of whole cities in college towns for the weekend,
Yeah.
but. Yeah, no, super cool there. Love the history. Again, on their 50th years, and San Antonio's gone hard for that franchise. Like, obviously, that's their lone team has been super successful. 5 championships. Like, you love that Pop is still coaching there and can celebrate part of that as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a little rough on court this year, product wise, but that could also change very quickly. If one Victor Wembanyama steps on the door. So we shall see. Balling for me this week is, I mean, I guess it's a two-part thing, but it's the Washington Wizards and Kyle Kuzma, because the Wizards are having Kyle Kuzma bobblehead night, and they're doing it with the infamous pink sweater. And I know y'all know the picture that I'm talking about, with that oversized like pink sweater with the ridiculous sleeves that drape way over his arms, and everybody memed the hell out of it. But they are honoring that just absolutely ridiculous pregame fit with a bobblehead. I am like really tempted legitimately to drive down to DC and try to catch this Wizards game.
I mean, yeah, at first I was like, "Oh, that's gimmicky as hell," but then I was like, "Actually, that's kind of cool." Like,
I love the
I'd be all
gimmicky
about
stuff,
it.
though. That's the thing
Yeah.
at the giveaways. Like, I want embrace the memes, embrace the funny stuff.
Well, that's like again, I keep bringing it back to the Jags. They're just top of mind, obviously, but that's what they did with Shai Khan. They were and Minshew. They were giving away mustaches at the game. Like you get gimmicky. Do it. I get it. Have fun with it.
I'm going to charge you $5 every time you say Jags in the second hour of this episode.
Here's the thing: people watching this or listening to this know whether or not I will mention the Jags for the rest of the season. If they win, we got another week of it. If not, I probably won't mention them.
Yeah, if the beanie's on next week, it all went well.
Ballin' part 2 for me is the Hawks, which they don't have a lot of balling going on. So the Hawks are finalizing a deal to make Kyle Korver an assistant GM. Which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool for a guy who got traded for a literal fax machine once, or a copier, I should say.
Yes. So,
and obviously, so they're interesting in the sense that they're heavy players now. Like, Landry Fields is their GM, so you got Landry Fields and you got Kyle Korver. Like, these are guys that were in the league a lot more recently than later.
Yeah.
So that's definitely pretty cool to see on that front. I mean, obviously in the same vein as James Jones out in Phoenix as well.
Well, less than 10 years ago, Kyle Korver was in the All-Star game for Atlanta.
Oh yeah, I mean Korver. I mean, that was one of the it's one of the most successful Atlanta teams ever. I mean, it was him and Al Horford and Paul Millsap and Damari Carroll.
Was it Schroeder? Was Schroeder the backup point guard at that point?
He might have been. He was there early. Like, I remember they drafted him for sure. I think he might have been on that team.
Let me see. 2015.
That sounds right.
I just remember because he had the blonde like streak on the
Wiz patch essentially. Like, Wiz put that in his hair when Black and Yellow came out.
Here we go. Roster: Al Horford, John Jenkins, Kyle Korver, Shelvin Mack, Elton Brand, Damari Carroll, Paul Millsap, Mike Muscala, Mike Scott, Dennis Schroeder, Jeff Teague, Thabo Cephalosha. Holy moly!
I just remember Stephen A. Smith saying that all the time, or I guess his inability to say that. He's constantly messing it up all the time.
Bazemore was on the team too.
I remember that. No, Baze was there for a while. He was on Gold. He started his career in Golden State, and then he was there for quite a bit. All right. Fallen for me this week is Portland. Portland is 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 5 in a row as we're recording this. I mean, they're really going the wrong direction. They're only 2 wins for some perspective, and their last 10 have been over Detroit, who has borderline a G League roster right now, and Charlotte, who is, I think, the second worst team in the league. 2 losses to OKC, a loss to Denver, a loss to Golden State, and then in this 5 in a row, a loss to Minnesota, Indy, Toronto, Orlando, and Cleveland. The Cleveland and Orlando losses were both at home. Toronto on the road, but that's a team that has been going the wrong direction recently. Perhaps most concerning, Dame had 50 against the Cavs the other night, and it wasn't enough. And it doesn't really get any easier. That's the thing, is like, you've got a home and home, or not a home and home. You've got 2 games at home. Actually, that's kind of weird how that happened. But they've got 2 straight with Dallas on a back-to-back, and then you've got Denver, the Sixers, and then you get a little bit of a break, I guess, with the Lakers and the Spurs and Utah. But I mean, for some perspective, like, Portland is out of the play-in position right now. This is a team that has retooled around Dame spent a fair amount of money this past off season, and to not be in the play-in game again, where teams like Utah, who actively blew their core up, are in that play-in game position, and you're not. OKC has more wins than you right now. For as much crap as we've given the Lakers at 19 and 23, Portland is right there with them.
Yeah, it's not good vibes. It's not feeling good. I mean, at what point do you hit that panic button of like, what the hell do we do? And did we?
I mean, we know what the hell they need to do. It's just unfortunately it's doing it. And I mean, I wonder if it's easier now because Dame did break Clyde Drexler's record. So like Dame Lillard is the Portland all-time scorer now. That was one of the big history things that you were watching this year. I don't know though. Like that's the thing is like Dame's had every chance to get out of there. And when I thought it was finally going to happen a few years ago when they flamed out in the playoffs and he was making all those comments, but then he re-upped and like kind of embraced the retool and around being around Chauncey Billups. And so I don't know. And I mean, again, I don't knock Dame if he wants to stay, but it's like, yeah, if Dame Lillard wants to potentially go win a championship, it's probably that ship has sailed. Like, if it's not going to happen this year with the way that they retooled and a lot of those moves that I liked, like I liked extending Simons, I liked going out and getting Jeremy Grant. Like, I thought those were aggressive type moves that Portland has needed, and it's not happening so far.
Yeah, I completely agree, and so that's why I think it's that hard pill you got to swallow. And take a good hard look at your team and yourself in a way.
There's just not really another way to do it. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I mean, sort of like just getting rid of all the vets that you brought in. But at that point, so what? You've got Dame and kids? Like,
yeah.
If you're going to amplify a rebuild, I mean, this would be the year to tank. It's not too late, too, honestly. Like, that's the thing is with the top 3 odds, there are a couple of these teams that we'll keep an eye on where it's not really too late to be out of it. Like you've got the firm bottom at this point, right? With Houston and San Antonio out west with 10 and 13 wins respectively. And then you've got Charlotte and Detroit with 11 and 12 in the East. A couple other teams are starting to jump up there. Like Orlando's been winning games. OKC's been winning games. The Lakers are 6 and 4 in their last 10. But I mean, yeah, there are a couple teams like on the fringe here. Like Portland is somebody to watch. Chicago and Washington, Toronto as well. I think Toronto's in play in game position right now, but I mean Toronto moves like OG or Siakam or Fred VanVleet. All of a sudden that could be, I mean, they're a team to watch potentially not just for contenders because obviously like they have those are a lot of players, namely Siakam as well, that could really shake up the race here. But yeah, I mean they could get to the bottom quite quick if they make moves like that.
Yeah. So my last ballin, because I'm doing all ballins today, is the show Special Forces. I believe it's on Paramount Plus. For anybody that hasn't watched it, it's essentially they take reality stars, sports stars, and they put them through quote unquote special forces training, and they make them do some crazy stuff. Dwight Howard is on the show, and he absolutely gets worked in the first episode. The dude goes through it. You feel bad for him, but it is a really fun show if you want to watch it. Dwight Howard's on it for the sports people. Julian Edelman is also on it, and you definitely see the difference between the personality that it takes to be in football and the personality that it takes to be in basketball, because Edelman is a hell of a lot quieter than Dwight Howard is.
You know what I still think of from time to time with Dwight Howard? My bad. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll let you get back to it. When the NBA had the bubble and they had a party in the middle, they had DJs, right? They were setting up and they were playing music, and it was going to be like, all right, here's our socially distanced like party. Bro, the only person that showed up was Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard's just in there in the middle, just going crazy, having the time of his life.
Following it up.
It just cracks me up, which I mean, that's probably how I can imagine why Dwight Howard probably didn't do that great with a drill sergeant at first.
Yeah, there was some conflict. Apparently him and Mel B, former Spice Girl Mel B, get pretty close. Jamie Lynn Spears, I don't want to give away too much stuff, but she essentially pukes in the first few seconds. You have
special training forces, bro, or special forces training. Like, I get it. Listen, we are not going to hate on anyone who's puking in Navy SEAL training.
Right. In the first challenge, you get some guy that well, I guess he was second guy, a second challenge, he gets knocked out. No, so in the first two challenges, right? They do two challenges in the first 30 minutes of the episode. Three people are knocked out. One breaks their neck, the other one breaks their hand, and the other one taps out.
Jesus, bro. We got somebody breaking their neck in this show?
And your boy Dr. Drew, he gets knocked out.
My boy, who? What?
Dr. Drew gets in. It's
like,
Dr. Drew.
Who?
He's in the radio industry, man. Our boy Dr. Drew.
Oh God! Wait.
He doesn't. He gets well.
What I don't want to give anything. Hold on. What does he do in the industry?
He's he used to do a show. He used to do a radio show. He might still do a radio show, but he does a lot of podcasting stuff now. He has his own podcast, Dr. Drew After Dark, I believe it's called.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's a doctor, so But he used to be on.
Wait. No, I don't know. I don't. What is
he used to be on? He used to be on Loveline.
Oh, okay.
He used to be the doctor on Loveline. I think.
Wait, so is he an ex-doctor or is he a doctor?
I don't know.
Those are things. I'm not even trying to I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
I know. Well, he goes by Dr. Drew. He doesn't go by ex-Dr. Drew, so I guess he's a doctor.
Well, yeah, you don't really. I guess you could lose your doctor title if you get stripped by the.
I don't think he's.
I know if you're a lawyer, you can get stripped by the bar. You can get disbarred. I don't know what the. Is it ABA? I don't know what the equivalent is, or not ABA. I don't know what the equivalent of that is for a doctor. But
the former basketball association.
The American Bar Association. Oh my God. All right. No. And all right. Shout out to Dr. Drew. I'm like, that's my boy. I was cracking up. Like, I even mean to be I'm not trying to sound disrespectful. I'm just like, I don't know who this guy. This is my boy. I just love when somebody says that they're your boy and you have
your
no
boy.
idea who they are.
Your boy, Dr. Drew.
Your boy. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. Or read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, we're everywhere you can find a podcast, as we eloquently discussed earlier.
Yep, and you can find us on YouTube. Find a video version of the podcast. Just search Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube. We'll be back next week.